The starfire stopped 2 nights ago, but the scream inside the palace did not. It stayed in the throat of a queen who could not cry in front of her. Flitkuya and VARESSA stood alone on the glass bridge of her dread carrier bellow, heard the graveyard, drifted. Broken holes burned, banners frozen mist from ruptured life rings, place that used to be Archon Guthibord, axe station that held a lineant, held her last living cub. Now it was dust and metal, and Silencia commander spoke behind her. Careful, like stepping near a wounded beast. Gin Arrow Corvan, your majesty. The sweeps are complete. Gin Arrow Corvan. No pods, no beacons, no heat trails. Gin Arrow Corvan. Only wreckage say did not turn. Her paws rested on the railing, claws tucked in. By force in VARESSA. Say it playing Kyo Van swallow G in Raw Corvan. The cradle ship detonated Gna Corvan. Nothing could survive that field. Kuyan VARESSA live Koavian. Left fast, not from fear of death, from fear of watching a queen break. VARESSA stayed and watched the debris spinch, replayed the last image on loop. Small face off her big eyes that trusted her. CROW and cub Soren had begged to ride with the evacuation, had wanted to be bravato, be ciento, be worthy. VARESSA had said yes because her people did not raise weak air strength through fire hornet. Trial no, her air was gone on. Her throne felt like a cage made of bones far from royal corridors. A human ship cut through the same wreck field net, a warship net, a flag carriera. Patched salvage skiff that looked held together by stubbornness. Its name was a joke painted on the hull in white. CCOND ROWAN HOLT leaned forward in his pilot framia. Neurorig laced into his neck fed him vectors and drift, mathakind focus that made other species. Uneasy humans did not just look. The hunted patterns are orbit. Show me anything that still pinks. Ship AI answered in a calm voice. Orbit. Multiple dead transponders. Orbit. Scattered fuel cells. Orbit. And one active signal. Or WAN blinked. Or WAN. Active, as in alive. Orbit. Active, as in powered. Orbit. Faint. Biotrace present. ROWIN's hands paused on the controls. Battle had ended days. Aggregation still licked the field like an invisible storm. Nothing living should be her. Where Robit, embedded inside a cruiser spine. Robit. Section marked Royal Transport. ROWIN let out a slow breath. ROWIN, of course it is. ROWIN had a rule. He had it. If the universe hands you a live ping in a graveyard, it wants something from you. Guided second chance toward the broken crew. Seth hull was split like a cracked tooth inside shadows and sharp edge, and deep wedged in the wreck was a sealed pod net, an escape pod. Cradle pod, similar genius to keep a young body alive at any cost. WAN felt his stomach twist. WAN orbit. Confirmed life. Agano RBIT. Confirmed RBIT. Weak heartbeat. Low oxygen use. So RBIT. Stasis cycling. WAN. How long can it hold? RBIT. Unknown. RBIT. Damage detected. WAN floated closer. In a soothe pod was scorched and bent. A twisted beam pinned it. No scan team would have seen it. Not unless they were desperate. Lucky. WAN wedged a cutter into the beam and forced it back. It groaned like a dying animalth. Pod came free, and the moment it did, the cradle lights flickered. A thin, sad pulse. WAN stayed with me. He hauled it into his airlock and sealed the chamber. He Geiger meter chattered. RBIT radiation level rising. RBIT recommend immediate decontamination. ROWAN. After I see what's inside of the pod had royal seals. Burnt but redablind. A crest. Every child in the sector knew Philona crown clower WAN's throat when ROWAN NORBIT. Identification suggests high-value cargo. WAN not cargoed. Cracked the outer latches and fought. The warped rimth lid popped. With a hiss, cold vapor rolled out and a small body lay within, for the color of storm cloud stone. Yesa. Tail curled tight, like it was trying to hold itself together. Kubaliva Baryanan stared for half a second too long. Trainin took over. ROWAN orbit. Med Bay now. RBIT. Routing. ROWAN. Warm air. Slower. ROWAN. No ROWAN carried the cub like glass. The Med Bay was basic, built for humans, but ROWAN had patched up more than humans in salvage. You either learn or you deset the cub down and ran scans. Bone stress. Hydration burns from radiation. A stasis system failing in a pattern that screamed last chance. Little one, you are stubborn. RBIT. Stasis cell at 2%. RBIT. Failure in 41 minutes. ROWAN. Then we work fast mixed fluid set heaters, use broad spectrum, binus and a human trick that was not magicit was refusal falfusal to let a life slip away, because it was inconvenient, stabilize the stasis core with a manual bipospark snappets. Lights dimmed or OWAN's hands shook. But he did not stop. Minutes bled into ash, kept his voice calm like the cub could hear him. Or OWIN. You got lost in the worst place. Or OWIN, but you found the wrong human to die on. Or BT. Your heart rate is elevated. Or OWIN. Yeah, I noticed. Or BTU. I've exceeded safe exposure limits. ROWIN noted the cub. Cub coughed once, a tiny sound, but it was the sweetest sound Rowan had heard in months. Thighs open, wide and all sharp, just enough to see the world end. The world that looked back was a human face behind a masked. Cub tried to lift a poor WA and gently held it down. WAN easy. Or WAN you are Safithi. Cub's lips moved a weak whisper and fell in our tongues. Or WAN Cub Soren. Mother Aroda Boyan. Swallowed hard. Aroda Boyan. Ya Aroda Boyan. We're going to call Aroda IT. Outgoing transmission blocked by fleet quarantine. Odobuyan. Then we do it the right way. Odobuyan. We send proof. Odobuyan sat at his console and recorded a clean message. No threats, no demands, no drama, just facts. Odobu. 2. The Feliner Sovereign Fleet. Odobuyan. This is Rowan Holt, Independent Salvager. Odobuyan. I recovered a functioning royal cradle part from the Archon Gate debris. Odobuyan. The occupant is alive and receiving treatment aboard my vessel. Odobuyan. I request secure channel for identity confirmation. Odobuyan. I will transmit visual and biometric keys on your reply. Attach scanjert beat readout stasis logs and one short clip of the cub blinking. Weak but Relthon he sent. I tend, waited with a knot in his chest stone. The dread carrier, War Council, froze around a single alert. Tongji Narok Korvan. Your Majesty, an incoming message via RISS did not move. Queen VARESSA read. IT Korvan read, then stopped. His eyes flicked up. Unseregeneral Corvin. It claims the cub is a Lafathroom erupted. Advisors shouted. Guards shifted. Dostrisk an enemy trick. They say their ransom ply a cruel bait. VARESSA raised one puzzle and slammed down Kuyan. VARESSA Shometh clip. Played unmistakable. A small faced on grey Furin eyes that looked like hers. Surin blinked once. Slow. VARESSA's breath caught so hard it her claws came out by accident, scoring the arm of her chair. Kuyan VARESSA verification code. Sogia Noral Corvon. Yes, my queen thee, demanded the royal stasis. Keith's cradle signature line codes known only to the Chronont when the human returned all of them. Correct and clean. The room went quiet in a new way. Not fenetrage. Hope, sharp as a Blagian arrow. Corvan. It is real. VARESSA student. Every officer felt the weight of her moving. Kuyan VARESSA. Set course. Kuyan VARESSA. Now CCOND. Chance drifted in open space. When the Feliner fleet arrived, ROWIN watched the tactical display fill with icons. Were cruise escort wingsuit carrier so huge it blotted starlit. Or BIT. Weapons are armed. ROWIN. I would be shocked if they weren't. Docking request incoming. ROWIN accepteth. Dread carrier moved closer with a strange, careful grace like a predator trying not to spook its own Kuba. Docking arm extend. Zealot left. Airlock hissed. ROWIN stood with his suit off and his hands visible, looked tired. Hair flat, eyes red from hours awake. Behind him, the medbay door stayed closed inside. Soren slept under warm lamps. Hatch open. Edwards first on officer stand, a figure that made the room feel smaller. Kuyan VARESSA enter at 7 feet of silver black fur and regal armor, a crown plate on her brow that caught the lither eyes. Did not look at Rowan at first. He looked past him. Hunting Queen via RASSA. Where ROWAN stepped aside. ROWAN. Medbay. ROWAN. He is stable, but weak. VARESSA moved like a storm held in the fists, reached the medbay and stopped at the threshold. The cub was there. Thieling's chest, rising and falling. VARESSA's posture broke in one silent crack. A sound came from her throat. Low and raw, a sound no one in the fleet had ever heard. From Hirsch crossed the room and dropped to her knees. Paw hovered, afraid to touch, and she touched gentle fingers against the cub's cheeks. Sharo Dublin. Cub Soren sturdy eyes fluttered and the smallest voice said the word that could shatter empire. Sharo Dublin. Cub Soren. Mother Kuyan VARESSA. Yam Haraquian seeing Vay. I am Hera. Her face pressed to his furin. She breathed like she had been drowning for days. Or Dublin stood near the wall and tried to become invisible. He had expected guns questions and Shins had not expected To watch a queen turn into a mother after a long moment, VARESSA rose and faced him. Guards tightened their grips. Rohan felt the air shift. Queen VARESSA human. Rohan mom. Queen Vay, you found what my fleet could not. Queen VARESSA, you pulled my heir out of the void. Rowan, I found a pod. Rowan, I opened it. Rowan, he was alive. Rowan, I did what anyone should do. VARESSA studied him, her gaze sharp, old, weighing truth. Queen VARESSA, many would have sold him. Queen VARESSA, many would have left him to avoid risk. Queen VARESSA, you stayed. Queen Finko Aires, your medical logs show you worked until your hands shook. Orbit spoke softly from the wall speaker. Orbit, record integrity confirmed. Rowan winced. Rowan, you looked at my logs. Queen VARESSA, I needed to know the heart of the one who saved him. Queen VARESSA, Felinor, do not forget life debts. Queen VARESSA, name your price. Every officer leaned in. This was the moment where fortunes were made. Rowan's mouth opened, then closed, because the truth was smaller than their expectations. Rowan, I have ship debt. Rowan, docking fees. Rowan, and a trade restriction in your space because someone filed me as a scavenger nuisance. Rowan, I want clearance to travel and work without being shot at. Rowan, and enough credit to keep my crew fed. Pause. Then something like amusement warmed the Queen A's Queen B-R-R-A-S. You ask for crumbs when I offer a throne room. Rohan, I am not built for thrones. Queen VARESSA, that is why you deserve a seat in one. She turned to her officers. Queen VARESSA, grant him crown clearance. Queen VARESSA, issue a legal mark of safe passage. Queen VARESSA, pay his debts in full. Queen VARESSA, and bind him to my house as shield. Friend. A ripple moved through the room, a title used only for those who had saved royal blood. Corvan blinked. Stunned. General Corvan, your majesty. That rank carries protection under old law. Queen VARESSA, good. Queen VARESSA, let all know. She looked back at Rowan. Queen VARESSA, you will also dine in my quarters tonight. Queen VARESSA, I will hear how. A human walked into a graveyard and returned with a heartbeat. Rowan rubbed the back of his neck. Rowan, I do not own formal clothes. A few guards almost smiled, then remembered themselves. VARESSA tilted her head. Queen VARESSA, then you will dine as you are. Queen VARESSA, I want the truth, not silk. Later, in private. The Queen sat beside the healing bed. Soren slept again. Safer now. VARESSA spoke to General Corvan in a low voice. Queen VARESSA, why did my teams miss the pod? General Corvan, it was buried inside the cruiser's spine. General Corvan, no signal strong enough to pierce the metal. General Corvan, the human used close-range pattern sweeps. Queen VARESSA, and stubborn eyes. Corvan nodded. General Corvan, yes, my Queen VARESSA looked at the sleeping cub. Queen VARESSA, I thought the void had taken him. Queen Finko Aires, I started to accept it. Her voice tightened. Queen VARESSA, I hate that I started to accept it. Corvan did not answer. There was nothing safe to say. VARESSA's gaze drifted to the medical logs again. The timestamps, the steady hands, the repeated notes. Stay warm, keep breathing, do not give up. Queen VARESSA, he called it simple salvage. General Corvan, humans call many miracles by small names. VARESSA's whiskers twitched. Almost a smile. Queen VARESSA, that is what makes them dangerous to the old empires. Queen VARESSA, they do the impossible and pretend it was a chore in the corridor outside. Rowan tried to explain to Arroy protocol aides that his boots were all he owned that were not torn. The aides stared like this was a cultural insult. Rowan, I swear I am not trying to disrespect your queen. Rowan, I just did not expect to be invited to dinner by a dread carrier. The aide finally managed a stiff nod, then quietly handed him a clean cloak. Not silk, not gold, just warm fabric and a crest. Pin a small symbol that meant this human is under crown protection and far away. On the edge of that same wreck field, the debris kept spinning, metal and ash and broken dreams, but it no longer felt like a tomb because one stubborn human had treated the void like a problem, not a sentence. A queen's nightmare had come true. Then a human stepped in and brought the cub back from darkness, and in the star courts of the Felona the story spread fast. Not about fleets, not about weapons, not about victory banners, but about a patched salvage ship named Second Chance, and a human who looked at a royal life and said quietly, not today.